Hello and welcome back to the Day Luna Human Design Podcast with your host, Dana and Shayna. This is a solo duo episode about a topic that we find really interesting. It's something that we talk about a lot when we're with our friends or, going into those deep conversations together on the couch. And we're just kind of vibing. And that's so funny that that's how our friends are. But I think if you're listening to this podcast, you are too, because this topic is all about understanding your karmic relationship with your parents and how that plays a big role in who you are and in your life path. Because when we're looking at our human design blueprint, this is the avatar, if you will, that your soul chose to come be and experience in this human form. So we have all of these parts of our human design chart that are like these, potentials that we're here to grow into. But another huge part of our journey is the conditioning that we experience from the people around us and the kind of soul karma relationships, karmic soul contracts that we have. Those different relationships and those experiences that we have are going to play a big role in how our nervous system is wired and the conditioning that we experience. And all of those things then can either support or kind of negatively pull you away from living your human design. So we think that diving into really understanding our relationship with our parents and that conditioning that we experienced in our family of origin when we were young is a really fascinating part of understanding who we are in general in this life.
Yeah, and this is something that we dove into actually in our Bali retreat. And we really got to share with each other what karmic reason really resonated with us most when we reflect on our parents and their journey and our relationships with our parents. And it was so amazing getting to hear from, 20 other people what karmic reasons are showing up in their life. And when you have this kind of objective view, it allows you to have almost like a closer relationship with these people in your life, with your parents, because even if you don't say anything to them, even if you don't do anything, even if they're not alive or they're not a part of your life anymore, understanding your karmic connection of why you chose your parents, it creates this sense of closeness and intimacy and awareness that doesn't need to be spoken about. It kind of settles into your soul and holds space for the lessons that you're here to learn and give to each other. So we love this topic and I think you will too. I'm excited. We're going to keep this short and sweet, but we're excited to get into what those reasons are. And please share with us on Instagram, at DayLuna, what why you feel you chose your parents, because we just love to kind of reflect and share in that space. Like Dana said, our 2-4-ness, we love the cozy sleepover vibes. And this is
But
always one
like
of those
going
topics.
cozy sleepover vibes, but like going deep. Like, what was your childhood trauma and how is your relationship karmically really with your mom and your dad and your everything? Like, that's our style.
100%.
Yeah. So going into this topic, I just wanted to reference that this originates from Walter McKitchen, who wrote the Spirit Baby books. And when I was reading the Spirit Babies for the first time, going through these, they really clicked with me. And he talks about, Walter McKitchen was an intuitive and is able to really feel into those who have crossed over, whether they have passed away or whether they have yet to incarnate, AKA a spirit baby. So a soul that has not yet come onto this plane. And through his work, communicating with spirit babies, he started to realize that there was all of these different reasons, like many, many, many different reasons why a soul would choose to incarnate with the specific parents that you have. But then through that process, he started to see that there was like 4 major patterns. So these are like the 4 bigger patterns. And of course, within this, there's lots of specifics and every relationship is so unique. And you can really resonate with having more than one, actually, like maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 of these reasons specifically with your parents. But the first one, the first karmic relationship that you can have is that you choose your parent because you have unfinished business with them. So in a past life together, something happened that never got resolved. Maybe there was some conflict or something even violent that happened. And then in this lifetime, you choose that parent because you want to continue hashing out that conflict. So this is obviously, as it sounds, kind of a more difficult karma to have with one of your parents. You might, if you have this karmic relationship, you might find that even when you're really young, there's just a lot of friction with you and your parent. Like maybe you're constantly bumping heads, or maybe you're always arguing, and the physical reason of why might not even make sense. It's just you're bringing that energy of there always being a challenge, there always being a conflict, there always being that friction. And that's because in this lifetime, you guys are continuing to work out that challenging aspect.
Yeah, and maybe in a past life, you did harm to them, and now you are having that unfinished business in this lifetime to really resolve that. Maybe you had a conflict in a past life that now you are needing to address, or maybe in past lives you have this trauma, that your story or pattern that you keep replaying out, and in this lifetime you chose them. That is that unfinished business, to either break that pattern, to heal that trauma. This is where we get into like healing generational traumas. Um, you chose that parent to really show you how to navigate this unfinished business, to really come to finishing that business, if you will. So, this is definitely one that I really resonate with. My mom is this unfinished business energy, and having that reflection and this wording and insight on why I might have chosen her as my parent has been really supportive, because it allows me to let go of the angst that can come around not understanding someone or having that conflict, and really start to see it as, okay, we chose this for a reason. And by me having more awareness and me doing this healing and me doing cleaning up my side of the street, it is doing the karmic work of resolving this conflict. And maybe in a past life I wasn't so great to her soul. And so just kind of knowing that has been so helpful to navigate the relationship that I have or don't have with my mother, and give more of an objective, loving and healing energy towards that relationship.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I think this particular one is really empowering is because it is perhaps the most challenging karma out of the four that we're going to talk about today. But it helps you to get rid of the victimhood mentality, to transcend out of that and to come into a state of empowerment. What I mean by that is that if we're not seeing karmic reincarnation through this lens, we can feel like we didn't choose our parents. Our parents chose us, right? Our parents chose to mate and for us to be born. And so we can feel this victimhood of like, it's messed up that I have this parent that with such this hard relationship. Maybe they're an alcoholic, or maybe, something like that. And without having this awareness, we can really feel like victimhood and disempowered in that. But once we realize, oh, there is a higher reason why I actually did choose to be their son or their daughter. And it's because we're finishing this karma, even though it doesn't make it easier. Like you're still going to have to walk through those challenges and face those conflicts and have those tough conversations, and perhaps create boundaries that feel uncomfortable to do. Like it doesn't make it easier to navigate, but on a spiritual level, it transcends victimhood and it is actually empowering. It does actually give you peace to understand that this is not a punishment, that this is something that your soul chose, because at the end of the day, it's going to help your soul grow and evolve and advance to walk through these things. And it is actually something that you have an opportunity to complete that karma. And if you avoid doing the hard work with that challenging parent in this lifetime, you might come back in the next lifetime and continue this unfinished business. So it really does benefit your soul to dive into that. And there is sort of that transition from victimhood into empowerment when you can look at it through this lens. So, the next type of karmic relationship of why you can choose your parents is more of a good thing energy. So, maybe this is that in past lifetimes, you've spent time connected with your parents' soul, and you just really enjoy spending time together. You enjoy playing together on the earth plane, and you just have a close knit bond, right? You're there to support each other. You enjoy each other's company and personality. And so, you choose that parent in this lifetime because you just want to spend more time with them. And as it sounds, this is a really easy karma, a really nice karma to experience. Maybe it doesn't help your soul grow as much, but it is something that you get to enjoy on this physical plane. And it's really interesting. I really resonate with having this karmic relationship with my mom. Like, I just love being around her. I love talking about the world together. I love having new experiences together. And I always have felt that way. And we've always had a really easy relationship in that sense. And it's interesting because you might feel that you have this karmic relationship with your parent, even if they have a challenging personality, or even if they've made some choices in your life that have been really hard to deal with. Perhaps they've, gone through, relationships that didn't have healthy dynamics and you had to watch that as a kid. And so even though you go through physical things together, the frequency of your karma feels like I still enjoy being in this life with them. And it still feels easy for me to be around them, even if there are physical things. And on the other side of that, if you have that unfinished business karma, there might have been nothing on the physical plane that specifically happened for you to feel so challenged and to feel so much conflict, but that karma can be there. So it's really interesting to see that it's not necessarily what happens in this lifetime, although it also can be. It's much more of the energy behind it, that feeling that you feel in your soul when you think about your connection together.
Yes, I love that. And then the next karmic reason that you might have chosen your parent is a debt repaid. So maybe your parent did an act of kindness for you in a past life, and now in this lifetime, you're repaying them. This often looks like the child is being like the healer or the caregiver for your parent, or the parent even of your parent. And this can bring in some challenging energy to help your soul grow in this life, because a lot of times we have the story of, I always had to be the parent, I had to grow up really quickly. But when you can have um the awareness or the objectiveness to really see, okay, I chose they gave me some sort of kindness in a past life, and I just feel like I want to take care of them. I feel like I want to repay that. It just comes naturally for you to step in and caregive for that parent. And it doesn't feel um toxic necessarily. It feels more just what is what's gonna
Yeah.
happen really naturally. That's this energy. And I definitely feel this with my dad. I feel a few of these with my dad. I feel like more of a good thing, even though he hasn't, on paper, he's not the best dad in the world. Just felt like more of a good thing energy, but also a debt repaid. Like, it was really easy for me to step in and take care of him when he was passing, and that just felt so natural. And so knowing, like, it feels like a sense of resolution in your soul when you are
Mm.
repaying that debt to someone who took care of you maybe in the last life, or really did something that nurtured and cared for your life. It just feels like that resolution and that love and that simplicity of, like, completeness, I guess you would
Yeah.
say. Because
Resolving the karma then
resolving.
feels like the book is closed, that chapter closing. There's like that peace that's there. Yeah, that's so interesting. I also feel this one I resonate the most with my dad, but not more of a good thing, because it wasn't like I wanted to be friends with my dad, but I did feel this debt repaid because even from a really young age, I felt like I was my dad's healer. I was his therapist, and that felt natural for me. It didn't feel like off course. It didn't feel like it drained me. It made me happy to be a force of love, a force of positivity, a force of support in my dad's life. My dad struggled with alcoholism. And from a really young age, I just had this awareness of almost like being a little mature mother to him, and creating firm boundaries and forgiving him and understanding that he was suffering with mental illness and, alcoholism from a really young age, and taking care of him when he passed away. I literally had the experience, like this feeling when he was passing through that death portal, like I was his mother and he was my child. And it did feel absolutely what you're saying, that resolving feeling. And without knowing this information, I could see where people would ask me, like, do you feel bitterness or resentment towards your dad? And it's like, no, more than that, I feel kind of like I always felt sad for him, or I always felt like sorry for him. And I wanted to just cheer him on and help him out. And that's really what I felt on a soul level. And
Same.
it's this because of this karma. And, other people are like, well, why are you the one that has to step in? And it's like, because that's what felt right without really being able to explain it to other people because of this karmic relationship.
Yeah, and this is also where you can see how, if you have siblings, your siblings have a different relationship with your parents than you do. Where,
Yes.
one of my siblings has a totally different relationship and is hurt by completely different things from my father, who was definitely not father of the year. Um, and so it's just really interesting to see, oh, they have a different karmic relationship. They chose them
Yeah.
karmically for different lessons than I did. And same thing with my mom. They have a different relationship with her. And so it's really helpful to have this lens because you can let go of the comparison and the judgment and the stories that people want to give you. I remember meeting with a therapist after my dad passed and her really wanting to give me the story of like, let's dig into your dad wasn't there in your childhood, or, he left you with your mom. Like, how horrible could he been to do that? And it's just like, none of those are my stories. None of those are my karma. That energy really is not something that is lingering and sticking on to me as a lesson that I'm really here to navigate and traverse. It really was like, I feel bad for him. I feel like I want to nurture and care for him almost like a parent. So, debt
Mm.
repaid, the word debt sounds so heavy to me, but
Yeah.
I almost want to say like love exchange, like a love
Or
repayment, or
Or I think of it as like a
repaying a
gift repayment.
kindness. A
Like
kindness.
you're a gift to them in this lifetime. And that's because in a past lifetime, they were a gift to you.
Yeah.
They gifted you something when you didn't necessarily earn it. It was a gift, right? And that's what a gift is. It's not an exchange, like a barter. A gift is like, I'm giving you this with no strings attached. And so to even think about, I think that's something that's really sweet to think about with my dad. I wonder what that gift was that he gave me in some other lifetime. I've read examples like from the book in Spirit Baby's book. It's like talking about maybe they were a king and you were impoverished and they just chose to give you all of this money. Or maybe you were, someone who was, struggling some way and they were a doctor and they saved your life. You never know what it is, but to feel the totality of that, even though that was in a past life and maybe you don't have conscious awareness of it, I feel like it also brings that sweet feeling of peacefulness to your life. And it is so interesting too, like with my brother and my dad, they definitely had an unfinished business karmic relationship where when my dad passed away, my brother was like, really angry. And he even said things like, I'm glad he's gone, which I think is something that a lot of people actually do say. And it feels like that's shocking to hear. But, you know, everyone has their own personal experience. And I think
Yeah.
knowing that for me, it was helpful because I did kind of gaslight my brother's relationship with my dad. I'm like, listen, I grew up with the same dad and I turned out fine. I literally said that before. That's so judgmental and really lacking awareness and depth. And now knowing this, I'm like, oh, I did have the same dad, but I really didn't. I had a completely different karmic relationship that I was navigating. And it's important to have awareness of this because it's invisible to other people. Physically, we experienced the same situations with him. We were there in the same shitty moments. We were there for the same mistakes that he said, but we had this different karma as we experienced it.
Yes. Oh, I have chills as you're sharing that because I think every single person can relate to that feeling of wanting to it's conditioning, right? It's like homogenization, wanting to say like my experience is should be the same as your experience. And when we
Hmm.
can have that expansiveness for everyone's karmic lessons to be different and to have different experiences, even if they were in the exact same moment with that person or that relationship, our parents are the biggest conditioning force in our lives.
Hmm.
And so that's why we all have so much childhood trauma because
Hmm.
even if you had amazing parents, there was still things that were really challenging or where you felt unseen or all the things. Um, but it's just so fascinating to dive into this. So then the last one is you chose your parent karmically because of a special skill. So your parent had or has a skill that you need to inherit or be around to achieve your goals in this lifetime. And they might be here to help you in learning that skill in some way. So I definitely resonate with this once again with my dad. My dad's a huge nerd, and this is just a good example of this, but he was, an engineer and really into sci-fi and aliens and time travel and all the things. But he definitely worked his way up in his life. He's black, and he started working for the government. He started as a janitor, and he literally worked his way up until he was at the top of his field working on projects for NASA. And he was hiring people who had multiple PhDs, and my dad never even went to college. He never even got a degree. So it really was amazing to see his charm, his skill with his charm, his skill with his people skills, and also his tenacity to make something out of nothing, his alchemy that he had. And these skills he definitely passed on to me, and I embody them every single day. And I know that's why I chose him as my parent, was to learn these skills from him to be able to accomplish the goals that I have in my life, and also to be able to um to be interested in these things. I don't know if I would have been interested in all of these things if I didn't have a dad who was watching Star Trek every single night and I've seen every single episode of Doctor Who. You know, I think that that was a huge part of why I chose him. So, looking at your parent and seeing what, you know, did you choose them for a special skill, or maybe they're a doctor or a lawyer. Maybe you have a 10th, one or two of these karmic things where you have unresolved business, but let's say they work in some skill of like building homes, and so you're still having unresolved business and it's challenging, but at the same time you also karmically are getting these skills that you wouldn't have had if you had a different parent, where now you know how to take care of things and build things on the physical plane.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really want to encourage you as you're thinking about your relationship with your parents. We want to encourage you to think about your biological parents, because even if you didn't have a relationship with them, or even if you weren't raised by them, they are going to have a very powerful role in your life and in your karma. But we do also want to invite you to think about the people that played parental figures in your life, or guardian figures as well. So, like for me, I also have a stepdad that I've had since I was 2 years old, and he is a huge part of my life and a huge father figure in my life. And I can really think of karmic reasons why I've chosen him as my stepfather. Definitely, this special skill one has been coming up a lot recently. Like he's also a musician, taught me how to play guitar and taught me music theory when I was 11 years old. Brought instruments into our house, and also he was spiritual and had all of these spiritual books around. And so I really think, and he's a projector, whereas my dad was a manifester, so very different energy from me. We'd love for you to kind of think about all of the parental figures in your life and to see. And that getting into the human design of your parents too, I think is another layer that is fascinating to look at. We're shocked how many people we ask, like, do you know what your parents' designs are? And they're like, no, I just haven't thought to go to that level. I've been looking at my own chart, I'm looking at my kids or my partner maybe, but we invite you, see if you can find your parents' birth time and look up their human design charts too, because it is fascinating to add on that layer. We have this karmic relationship, but also we have these differences in the mechanics of our energy. And knowing that really helps you understand the conditioning that they might have given you, or the limiting beliefs that they had because of their design, or the fears that they had because of their design. Sometimes you can see that you've been holding on to your parents' fears. Like you, for example, don't have gate, 28, but they do. And so you've been holding on this whole time to their fear of taking risks or fear of running out of time. And so it can be really fascinating to look at their human design in tandem with these karmic relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't have my parents' birth times, but if I ran their charts several times throughout the day, and there's some key things that always stay the same. So even just knowing that, if you can't find their birth time, can be really helpful. And just give you a lot of insight into the conditioning that they, not consciously might have been playing as a role in your life. So just wanted to plant that seed in case there's just no way to have that birth time. You still can get in there and kind of see like what are the things that don't change at all. let me really look at those and hold space for that energy. But we love this topic. I'm so curious to hear how this resonates and why you feel you chose your parents. Even reflecting on why you feel maybe your siblings chose your parents or the parental figures in your life. Your grandparents, if they were a big part of raising you, or like Dana said, parental figures um, throughout your life, and why maybe you chose them. So we love you all. We love our karmic ties, that they're meant to help us grow and change. And honestly, just hearing this information and reflecting on it helps you to grow and lean into embracing the lessons versus fighting against them or latching on to judgment or latching onto the stories that maybe other people might be giving you around this specific scenario and relationship in your life. So we're just excited to see how this lands. So please reach out on our Instagram at dayluna. And as always, you know where you can find more of our content on our website, daylunalife.com. You also can find our membership where we connect monthly and get into ceremonies, where we dive into deep stuff like this. And anytime that we have a retreat in the future, we'd love to see you there. So make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter, leave us a review. We just love hearing from you. So daylunalife.com. Have a beautiful, karmically expansive rest of your week. Thank you for tuning in with us today. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to follow along and learn more about human design.